Hello and welcome back to One-on-One Shadowboxing, Have Your Say. My guest in the studio of WTV is Dr. Michael McKibben. Michael, we're back from the break and we are just interrupted your very interesting statement of why we couldn't find people dying from bad medicine and bad treatments, mistreatments in hospital, in the statistics of deaths in Australia or elsewhere. So tell us the story, Michael.
Okay, that was in the Sydney Morning Herald, and it was by Amy Corduroy, she's a health writer. And I rang her up and said, hey Amy, you've missed out on reporting an epidemic. And
she was wondering what you're talking about.
She didn't know what iatrogenesis was. She was a health writer. Yep. So
in Sydney.
In Sydney, yeah. So I then started to look at how the hell could you conceal that many deaths. Now, Carmen Lawrence had put out the figure of 18,000 in hospital deaths, and various other authors had spoken of thousands, and yet there's no thousands in that graph you're showing. So I contacted the Australian Bureau of Statistics.
Yes.
And when Prime Minister Rudd was in, I contacted his Minister for Health. And she came out with the great figure that there were 259 iatrogenic deaths in Australia that year.
259?
You notice a difference, don't you?
It is a big difference. I thought 250,000. No, 259.
So how do they get to that? The World Health Organization puts out guidelines on how to sign death certificates.
Yes.
And there's a statement there where they're permitted to substitute or state the cause of deaths. For instance, I had a patient who overdosed on lots and lots of painkillers, and he died as a result of that. Well, on his death certificate, they put kidney disease. Okay?
That's very obvious.
So they're transferred from one cause of death to another. Yeah, and when I asked the Minister for Health and a lot of other people, what are your figures on iatrogenesis? Nobody really has anything. Whether it's the Commission for Safety and Quality in Healthcare, who should have it, they don't know.
And do they really don't know, or they're just bullshitting?
They can't know, because if everybody is shifted across to a non-iatrogenic cause,
then no one knows.
Yeah, no one can know. So that's how doctors bury their dead.
So what's happening in Canada and the United States?
Because it's World Health Organization, it's everywhere. No country can define its own iatrogenic epidemic.
So where are we gonna get the numbers then? How can we convince ourselves this is an epidemic, which is a real one?
Okay.
Yes.
If you read up on books like Archer, and there's a whole pile of them, there's a lot of people looked at it, or ask Dr. Google, and you'll see that there's a huge number. And you put in iatrogenic epidemic, and it'll come up with a whole lot of answers. Or you can look at a journalist assignment. That's an article that I put up for journalists and sent it out to all of the media I could think of over and over again, and I've invited anybody who writes an article about illness and death to have a look at it. Nobody ever responded.
What do you think why, Michael? Sorry? What do you think why they didn't respond? Because they should not part of the bad medicine or the big industry of medicine. Yeah. They're not doctors, so why didn't they respond? What do you think? What's the reason for that?
I think they've got a vested interest in keeping a lid on public awareness of iatrogenesis. And that's a tragic thing to say, but it didn't matter whether I saw the Attorney General, Darryl Williams, or Carmen Lawrence when she was Minister for Health. I went and met with them and talked to them about it, and nothing. I talked to my local member about it, and he said, well, it's not an election issue. And I was, what's an election issue? And he
People
said,
dying has never been an election issue.
Well, he
except
said,
if they're dying probably on the roads, or they are terrorists and killing some people, but they are not hundreds of thousands, thanks God. But when people dying in big numbers, 50,000 and more, because of something which we can sort of, prevent, they're not interested. That's unbelievable, Michael.
The fellow on that book makes a comment
Deadly medicines and organised crime. What's the
Yes.
comment?
That it's extraordinary that there are thousands of people die from painkillers
Yes.
and nobody makes any effort to do anything about it.
But if someone is died from...
Well, 9/11, 1,911 people, I think it was, and there was sensational,
coverage, yes.
coverage, yeah.
Of course. So what's the role of the big pharmaceutical industry members of these, deadly medicines and organized crime?
$7 trillion world industry.
$7 trillion per year.
Yeah. And they're looking after their interests by not having people be aware of it. Now, I would be dead but for medicine. I would be blind but for medicine, for the bright side of medicine. But the dark side of medicine I fear greatly.
So what's the difference between the bright side and the dark side, and who is producing which?
Well, I think there's a lot of good doctors out there and
yes.
a lot of really genuine people, but there's also a lot of villains somewhere in the scene, because it should be common knowledge that people know what iatrogenesis is and that they take more care of their health. As Gandhi said, something like, health is everything in the final analysis.
How can we have healthy life? And how can we avoid the deadly or bad medicine and the influence of the pharmaceuticals?
Oh, well, firstly, don't smoke. Secondly, don't drink to excess. Keep your weight down. That type of thing will add an extra 10 years to a person's life. We're all going to die, but there's certainly choices that we make. Many people would rather die than think, and many do. So the first rule is think. And the first rule about iatrogenesis is become informed. I'm fully supportive of medicine on its bright side, but I think people need to be aware of what can happen when it goes wrong and avoid being involved in that. Yeah.
So how education can help?
Yeah. Well, I think...
And where can you start education?
Buy books and read.
But people are not reading now. They are all on their devices and they're all exchanging, these emails and text message.
So they bring up iatrogenesis and have a look at it. There's plenty of information about. Yeah.
Such page is, what's in your Facebook page? You got that topic on?
I haven't got Facebook because too many people bothered me.
So,
no, but it's up on my webpage. Yeah.
Seriously, how can you educate the young people who are not really know anything about it, and probably they're not really interested, but if we not have the statistics and we're not sort of conditioned to accept anything outside of these statistics, how can this be broken, that cycle of silence?
That's a very hard thing. I've tried, in 2000, the West Australian Chiropractic Association put in a submission to the WA Minister for Health that there was a real problem. And the immediate response was what's just the same as happened in the last 16 years, nothing. I circulated that out to the media, nothing. I circulated that out to federal and state politicians, nothing. Yeah.
You think there's somewhere is a conspiracy to form silence?
I don't know.
Or the wall of silence is...
Well, you'd think the ABC or SBS would be adequately independent, but I've sent the information to them, not a thing. It's as though it's not happening. Even, like Four Corners and so on, I've never taken any interest in it. I don't know why. And don't forget, I'm a chiropractor. I'm out of the circuit. I'm just an observer.
And the chiropractic could not be still practiced, your medicine, with the hands-on, could not be practiced with a government subsidy? Or you say if private you can practice, but you couldn't part of the... What was the wording?
Okay, when you go to prison, I can't come and see you. If you run away and join the army, you've got to get the doctor's permission to be able to come and see me. Yeah? Once you fought for Queen and Country and you come back, if you want to claim under Veterans Affairs, once again, you've got to get the doctor's permission. If you go into hospital, I can't come and see you. That's all public health. My patients can't claim Medicare. That, again, is public health. We're not allowed in that.
And the insurance, health insurance not covering?
Private health insurance does, very generously.
It covers the chiropractic.
Yeah.
So that's the only way people really can get into that practice.
Yeah, it can be reimbursed, yeah.
Yes. So how expensive is chiropractic compared with other medical treatments?
The guy yesterday said to me that he had a device put in his back, in his just under his rib cage,
yes,
and some sort of device inserted in his backside, and that was $50,000 to stop his back pain.
And it stopped the back pain?
It's working very well. It's about his 5th operation.
5th operation.
I would say most chiropractic patients will come in, have a series of adjustments, their discomfort goes, and there's 3 phases. Your initial phase is to see if it's going to work or not. If it doesn't, well, you just send them off to a vet and they'll put them down. And the second phase is you try and get them to lose weight and whatever else to improve their health. And then if they want to go on to maintenance, they can. So it depends on what the person wants to do. If it's just acute care, I was a whoosher when I first went to a chiropractor. Yeah. As soon as I felt better, whoosh, I was gone. Yeah. Well, you get a fair few patients that do that.
So the maintenance is very important?
I consider it is. A lot of people who are health conscious will use that and stay healthy as they can. And these are people who, when you talk to them, don't smoke, don't drink to excess, are selective about what food they don't eat and what food they do eat. They get regular exercise and they stay away from stinking thinkers. Yeah.
So regular exercise, just to finish off the topic of chiropractic and the medicine and the bad medicine, how important is exercise in life?
Hey, somebody sits at a computer all day, they get up in the morning, they get in, have their breakfast sitting down, they get in the car, drive and sit down, they sit down all day long, and then they get in the car and come home and sit down and have dinner, and then they sit down and watch telly and go to bed. That's life for some people, eh? But you've got a heap of people now that'll go to the gym and work out and get fit and be healthier. Yeah, it's very good.
Michael, it's a pleasure talking to you.
I appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. And don't forget, next week, same time, same channel. Have your say, shadowboxing.